So, Father God, we thank you again that we can come together and we can study your word and have a look at what you've been saying through the ages to all the faithful who've come to you for salvation. Lord, we thank you because many of us in this room can call ourselves that, and we want to really just lift you up tonight in your word and just underline what you've been saying through Paul, and you through Paul. So help us to understand it in Jesus' name. Amen. Evening. Alright, and so we're on 1 Corinthians, so get yourself in the 1 Corinthians space and we'll just do a bit of a recap about what's going on. So Paul's written to a church in Corinth, and he's saying to them, basically, letters have gone backwards and forwards, objections have been made, and things have been said. So Paul writes this letter, and he writes 5 letters in total, but 2 of these letters we've got, 1 Corinthians and 2 Corinthians, and he starts to tell them that the way they're leading is not godly. Okay, so what happens is some of the people in the church who God was using prominently, people were rallying round them and saying, "Oh, you're my hero." Right, that I'm not sure they were saying that, but that's the kind of thing. And then they were going to another if it suited their particular cause at the time. "You're my hero," and they were going round to men, and the whole point of it, Paul's saying, is listen, you came to Jesus for salvation, stick with Jesus, he's going to sort you out, and all these people you're going to are just people who God wants to speak through to help you on the way. But they're not people you're supposed to anchor into, and you're supposed to make them the centre of your affections and the centre of the only thing you listen to and the thing you... So in the church, people were getting into cliques and little groups following others like that. Now, it doesn't seem like the leaders were doing anything about it. I mean, what can a leader do if people do that? And can you really detect that if I could sit in here and, someone's doing something prominently in the church, someone's got like a pastoral gift, and that's great that people can go there, but you can't legislate for what people are thinking in the heart and what they're doing and all that. So 1 Corinthians is given to us to say if you feel that something's rising up within you to follow an individual, a leader, or some kind of what we've got today, celebrity, then 1 Corinthians says don't do it. Then we've got to answer the question, what do we do then as believers? And then we're going to get a load of stuff which is going to come up through the letter that Paul wrote, which says this is how you anchor into Christ. This is how Christ's going to work through you. And he recalibrates the whole church round to being people who are more Jesus orientated than anything else. Now these problems, you get them in every church, but here's the problem, right? People don't address it. So the fact that this arises isn't like, oh my goodness, it's like, no, this is going to happen when humans get together to try and do anything. We all go for the easy fix, and the easy fix is go to a person and don't go to the unseen God, risen and glorified. Okay, so that's the easy thing to do, is to go to flesh. We can angle it, it'll talk back to us in a millisecond, it might not say what we want it to say, but it's definitely there for a quick fix. And we're all into the quick fix. Not going to mention the microwave generation that we live in. You put something in a box, press a button, and 3 minutes later there's a meal. Okay, but that's what we like. We want it quick. 2,000 years ago, somebody wrote a letter saying, "Don't do this." So we're going to endeavour not to do that. So if anyone in a group helps you, the Lord helps you through them. If anyone sort of like gets alongside you and makes it out that they've done something, they probably wouldn't make it out. Don't push your affections into them. Push your affections into Jesus risen and glorified, okay? And that's where we're always safe, and that's where we're going to do well. So a few things were written to Paul, and one of them was about marriage. There was some dodgy things going on in the church as a result of not following Jesus properly and not having people who are really set apart for the task of following Jesus, anchoring into people, choosing worldly wisdom over godly wisdom. So that's one of the things that Paul says. There's 3 things they didn't like about Paul. One of them was that they questioned his calling. Are you really an apostle? Really? Because last time we heard you were killing people who were Christians, right? Now, years and years ago, you fall off a donkey, see Jesus, then after a while, you're now telling us what to do. We're just, what's all this about? Next thing they were a bit unhappy with was his communication method. I didn't come to you with big words and eloquence and all these because the rock stars of that time was the people who could speak it and say it, and people gathered, and it was like amazing, And he didn't come like that. He says, I come with trembling, but with the power of God. Now my words are just words, but when God gets on the back of the words, chains are broken in people's lives, hearts are set free, minds released from years and years of bondage, all that kind of thing. And that's what Paul did. He went there, and the demonic realm fled because God had gone before him. So he was a proper apostle. He was sent by God. And we're going to find out another problem that they had with him, that he didn't charge for his service. Right, he didn't think, but we'll get onto that in a bit, because we're going to do 2 chapters, and I better get moving, because one of them's a big chapter. So, chapter 8, 1 Corinthians chapter 8, I'll read it. Now, about food sacrificed to idols, right, straight from the off, you're probably thinking, I don't eat food sacrificed to idols, what's this got to do with me? But we're going to look at a principle that occurs in this, which is universal and does apply to us in real time right now. So, I can't see this, I've got no glasses, but I'm going to try and, I don't know, it's one of those things. Now, about food sacrificed to idols, we know that we all possess knowledge. Knowledge puffs up, but love builds up. This is going to be the context of all this chapter. The man who thinks he knows something does not yet know as he ought to know, but the man who loves God is known by God. So basically, there's always more to know. That's all Paul's saying. If you think you know something as a Christian, don't just sign off on it. Don't put a full stop. Put a comma, because there's more to know. Because God's behind all this stuff, and you're never going to know as much as he does. So, no reason to get all, ahead of yourself because you know something. And Paul really does rip into him. So then, about eating food sacrificed to idols, what's happened is he's received letters, one about marriage, one about sexual immorality, one about lawsuits, and this is just another part of the letters that were sent to him asking him a question, and it was about food sacrificed to idols. In that day, they used to have temples of other gods and pagan gods, and people would go in there and eat the food. They also had the marketplace where meat was sold cheaper, but it had been sacrificed to idols. The Jews would not eat that meat, but the Gentiles would go and buy it without any conscience. So the Jews and the Gentiles in that church were both at odds with each other, because one thinks one shouldn't eat it and one thinks the other one's fine to eat it. Who's right? We're going to find out. So that about eating food sacrificed to idols, we know that an idol is nothing at all in the world, and there is no God but one. Now, the first thing I want to say about that, I'm going to go through it as line by line, is whoever's told you that anything in this world has power except God has lied to you. Okay? Idols don't have gods. There's no power in Islam. There's no power in Buddhism. There's no power in all the false religions that we have on this planet. There's only power in Jesus Christ. Okay? So let's sort that one out. All the other false religions, as I've just said it, false. Okay? They've got no. I'll give you just 2 examples why. Number 1, Christianity is the only religion where God comes after you. Every one of them is trying to get to God. Jesus comes after you. Okay? It's the only religion where the founder has died, then come alive again. Hello, boo, The resurrection, there's nothing like that in any other religion. And for those 2 reasons, just 2 reasons tonight, we've got to just set aside and say, Christianity is not just a religion. This is a story, a fact, a truth that comes from the very creation, before the creation of time, and you can put your trust in the data that's in the facts of Christianity. You can do that without hesitation, without much research. Just do it. God is a God of all time and power. So there's nothing in reading your stars. There's nothing in going to spiritualism. There's nothing in going to someone who'll look at your palm on an afternoon at a school. I think I'll have my palm read. Demonic. Okay? Because you're not trusting God. You're simply going to things that are going to spout information that comes from where? Right? And most of these people who are doing that have opened themselves up to the dark realm anyway. Okay? So you might get information, but it's got no power. God's got power, and he can change your life, and he can set things right. He can recalibrate your thinking. He can heal you. He can restore you, rebuild you, and renew you. And more than that, redeem you from a life which is going to go down south really quick. And I don't mean to dwell on it or anything. Right. So we know that an idol is nothing at all in the world, and that there is no God but one. For even if there are so-called gods, whether in heaven or on earth, as indeed there are many, and inverted commas, gods, and many lords. So Paul's not saying there's no such thing. People do put the trust in false gods. People do have false lords. He's not saying they don't exist because they do, but they exist in other people's lives, and they're absolutely powerless. So they're there, but for us who are believers, they've got no power whatsoever. They don't even exist. It's just, an idol is just wood or clay or metal. It's just got no power. Yet, 8:6. Yet for us, there is but one God, the Father, from whom all things come, and for whom we live, and there is but only one Lord, Jesus Christ, through whom all things came, and through we live. But not everyone knows this, for some people are still accustomed to idols, that when they eat such food, they think of it as having been sacrificed to an idol, and since their conscience is weak, it is defiled. But food does not bring us near to God. We are no worse if we do not eat, and no better if we do. Now then, this whole subject is a matter of maturity as a Christian. When I just went over the top saying there's no power in idols, but some Christians go, I'm not sure about that. There isn't any. There's none. So what Paul's saying is that if you've got a bit of knowledge and you feel that you can eat any meat, any food, because you can as a Christian, you can eat any food you want, right? Because there's no such thing as cursed food. You can't do it. If someone says, it's halal, well, it's probably really, it's not. There's a different reason why I wouldn't eat that food. It's nothing to do with the fact that it's been prayed over by a Muslim. Okay? That's not why I wouldn't eat it. I wouldn't eat it because I don't want to give money to people who don't spend it in the right ways, I think. That's the only reason. But food sacrificed to idols, the idols have no power, so you can eat the food. Here's the thing. If I start parading that knowledge around, and I go to the nearest Sikh temple, because they do great curries, right? And I go in there, and they give, I'm eating a curry like that, and someone sees me through the window. I don't know why I'd be sat near a window, or if they've got windows, but if they saw me doing that, and they said, there's Gary, who, calls himself a Christian, works at Altar One and all that kind of thing, and what's he? He's eating curry in a temple. It's food sacrificed to idols. So that's their response. That's their kind of, I'm confused now. Another response is, I'm going to do it myself, and therefore defile my own conscience. So if you think food, if you're at a place where you won't eat food because it's sacrificed to idols, that's your particular conscience. That's you saying that, and you go, well, that's what I believe. I'm not going to make you do it, because then we're going to find out that that's a sin to make somebody do that against their own conscience. Let's read on. Do you understand that? Your knowledge, you're clear. I'm clear that we can eat meat. All meat. It doesn't matter where you're eating it, and it doesn't matter who's mumbo jumboed over it either. Okay? There's one God, and He's given us all things to eat. But to use that and sort of not care about your brother or sister is a sin. So therefore, we've got to be measured, and we've got to waiver our rights to eat food. It's not just about food. It's about other things. It's about drinking, eating. What the kind of things we are seen to be partying with. Because if you cause a brother to stumble or a sister to stumble, then that's a sin. You understand? So your rights, Christians have got to manage their rights as Christians, because they don't know what other Christians. A while ago somebody said they didn't like something I was subscribing to on the internet. I stopped, because you know what's more important to me? The body of Christ. Brothers and sisters being in unity together. It doesn't matter. I don't have to be right about this. Sometimes I do. But about this, it's it's kind of like, what's more important? And this is what Paul's getting at. 9. Be careful, however, that the exercise of your own freedom does not become a stumbling block to the weak. For if anyone with a weak conscience sees you, who have this knowledge, eating in an idol's temple, won't he be emboldened to eat what has been sacrificed to idols? So you're being a mentor. So you go, it's all right to eat food sacrificed to idols. But he doesn't believe that it's all right, because he hasn't come to that maturity in Christ yet. So he sins against himself, really. So this weak brother, for whom Christ died, is destroyed by your knowledge. Paul's giving it to him really hard. You've got knowledge, You don't care. You're more important. You more care. It's more important for you to have knowledge and your freedom and your liberty as a Christian than it is about your brother and sister. Now that has many dimensions, not just food sacrifice to idols. It has many different contexts. Here's one, which might be a bit ouch for all of us. When you don't come to church, okay, because of XYZ reason, and those reasons are good reasons a lot of the time, but when it's not really a good reason, and it's kind of like, well, can't be bothered, just going to lie in bed, The Bachelor's on, or I don't know, I just like not going, for whatever reason, all that kind of thing. Have you considered how that affects your brothers and sisters? Because what we're going to get from this text and from the New Testament generally is that what God's brought together as the body, as the church of believers, is so unbelievably important and so unbelievably precious that we've got to, manage it. We've got to manage our relationships. We've got to manage how we meet together and all that kind of thing. And we all in this room have to grow into that space to be able to have that kind of maturity to go, hold on a minute, this is really important that we meet together. This is really important that we keep unity, that we keep the bond and the love of the Spirit together. And while people have absolutely good reasons not to come, right? So this isn't finger wagging. It's not we try or giving anyone an hard time or anything. Absolutely not. But if it has an effect through the whole body. That's just one thing. What else? If I've got a thing down here which I do want to read, but I can't read it because I think it's too small. It's really small. But I'll just finish the passage and then I'll get back to that. Is it 13? 11. So this weak brother is destroyed by your knowledge. When you sin against your brother in this way and wound their weak conscience, you sin against Christ. Oh, wow. Okay. So this is heavy stuff. Therefore, if what I eat causes my brother to fall into sin, I will never eat meat again, so that I will not cause him to fall. So it's about priorities. Is what I'm doing, because I know I can, you can do most things as a Christian, but other people might be damaged by your actions, and it's just saying, you've got to be mindful as a priority that the body of Christ is far more important than you going around having knowledge, and therefore knowledge leads to freedom, which leads to practices. And if you just keep going forward like a steam train and not thinking about those around you, Paul's saying you've sinned against Christ. Put the brakes on. Is my actions helping or hindering a brother or sister? Is what I'm doing and knowing that I'm okay doing it? So it's a bit of a funny thing because you're alright doing it yourself, but it's a sin if it causes someone else to stumble. Does that make sense? So when we say food sacrificed to idols, you got a title in the NIV Bible here, and it's just not quite the best thing. It's not really. It's saying food sacrificed to idols. Really, the idol's got no power over the food. So if anyone ever asks you, you shouldn't be eating that, just go, okay. Are you offended by me eating this? And if they say, no, I just think that you shouldn't, well, you're all right then. But if they say, well, I think that this food's been sacrificed to idols, I think that there's something wrong with the thing, then you say, oh, well, you know what, I'm happy to just shh. It sounds drastic, doesn't it? But can everyone see why we're doing that? It's not like a legalism or now the Bible's saying that we can't eat what we want. No, it's saying you can eat whatever you want. But it's saying that if that leads to sin, a brother or a sister who's not quite in the same place as you as a Christian, to fall, to be offended, anything like that, then it's going to be a problem.
Well, as it were, they'd be sensitive to conscience.
Yeah. Yeah.
In mine it says, eating meat offered to idols, because it's not just about eating meat in this context, eating meat to idols, when they feel it is wrong, tends to blunt their conscience, so that doing what is wrong becomes easier. So if someone else is watching you do something and they're thinking, it's not right, it blunts their conscience, and then when they go to do something that might be sin, they can go, oh,
That's it.
alright, it's not so bad. You know, I think everybody needs to be clear in front of, is that what you mean? Everyone needs to be clear in front of each other what's right and what's wrong. Is that right? Really?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
So that formula there, where our actions can harm and hinder or build up and encourage, okay, is something that can be transferred, not just food sacrifice to idols, but other things. I use the church attendance thing not as a crowbar to get you coming, because most of you want to come anyway, and it's not really applicable to this group because people have got great reasons why. I don't think anyone just sits there and go, you know what, I think I'll wash my hair, on Sunday nights. Like some people should, but I mean that's not the point. It's not for me to say. No, I'm joking. All right. So let's get. If we're happy with that, we can move on to the next chapter because it's so linked to everything, and then chapter 10 becomes something a little bit different. So I'll just get through this if I can. Yeah, I can do it. All right. So chapter 9, 1 Corinthians chapter 9. Am I not free? Am I not an apostle? Now what's going to happen here is he's saying, here's how I've waived my rights. This is my example. Okay? So the whole context is waiving your rights. Waiving your rights. And he's going to say, this is how I've done it. So I'm not just telling you and pointing my finger and saying, look, you should do this. I'm saying, look what I've done. So watch this. Am I not free? Am I not an apostle? Have I not seen Jesus our Lord? Are you not the result of my work in the Lord? Even though I may not be an apostle to others, surely I am to you, for you are the seal of my apostleship in the Lord. So in other words, Paul started this church and he's nurtured and grown them. He stayed there 1.5 years. Okay, so they know him and they've seen him, and we're going to find out they've seen him eat meat with some people and not eat meat with others. So they're confused. And now they're looking at him going, well, just a minute, you're pretty inconsistent yourself. So what's going on? Hence the questions. For you are the seal of my apostleship in the Lord. This is my defence to those who sit in judgment of me. So don't forget, they were bringing his calling into question. Don't we have the right to food and drink? He means apostles. Don't we have the right to take a believing wife along with us, as do the other apostles and the Lord's brothers and Cephas? Or is it only I and Barnabas who must work for a living? Who serves as a soldier at his own expense? Who plants a vineyard and does not eat of its grapes? Who tends a flock and does not drink of the milk? Do I say this merely from a human point of view? Doesn't the law say the same thing? For it is written in the law of Moses, do not muzzle an ox while it's treading out the grain. Is it about oxen that God is concerned? Surely he says this for us, doesn't he? Yes, this was written for us, because when the ploughman ploughs and the thresher threshes, they ought to do so in the hope of sharing in the harvest. If we have sown spiritual seed among you, is it too much if we reap a material harvest from you? If others have this right of support from you, shouldn't we have it all the more? But we did not use this right. On the contrary, we put up with it. We put up with anything rather than hinder the gospel of Christ. Don't you know that those who work in the temple get the food from the temple, and those who serve at the altar share in what's offered on the altar? In the same way, the Lord has commanded that those who preach the gospel should receive the living from the gospel. But I have not used any of these rights, and I am not writing this in the hope that you will do such things for me. I would rather die than have anyone deprive me of this boast. Yet when I preach the gospel, I cannot boast, for I am compelled to preach. Woe to me if I do not preach the gospel. That was his calling, his inner drive. That's what God was sending him to do. If I preach voluntary, I have a reward. If not voluntary, I simply discharging the trust committed to me. What then is my reward? Just this, that in preaching the gospel I may offer it free of charge, so that not make use of my rights in preaching it. Though I am free and belong to no man, I make myself a slave to everyone, to win as many as possible. To the Jews I became like a Jew, to win the Jews. To those under the law I came like one under the law, though I myself am not under the law, so as to win those under the law. To those not having the law I became like one not having the law, although I am not free from God's law, but I am under Christ's law, so as to win those not having the law. To the weak I became weak, to win the weak. I have become all things to all men, so that by all possible means I might save some. I do all this for the sake of the gospel, that I may share in its blessings. Do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way to get the prize. Everyone who conquers compete in the games does so with strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last, but we do it to get a crown that will last forever. Therefore I do not run like a man running aimlessly. I do not fight like a man beating the air. No, I beat my body and make it slave to it, a slave, so that after I have preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified for the prize. God bless his word to us. That's the preaching of God's word. But here's what's happening here. Paul's wanting to say, listen, this is what I've given up. Some of the other apostles have taken up a wife, and they're allowed to do that, right? They've also taken money for what they do, and we're going to find out here that it's right to do that. It's right to support people, right? If that's what they want to happen. Paul goes to great lengths. He uses the industry, the law, and the temple to point out that people who work get paid. That's just simply how things work, isn't it? But here's what Paul said. He said a few things like, so 9:14. In the same way, the Lord has commanded that those who preach the gospel should receive the living from that gospel. So there you go. There you have it. People who preach, people who teach, people who've got in God's work should be paid for that. It's not, but I'm not talking about $1.5 million and trying to put people's arm up the back to get money off them all the time. They just should be paid for what they're doing. It's an actual job, But then 15. But I have not used any of these rights, and I am not writing. He's not hinting. I'm not writing to you to sort of like nudge you. I don't want a reward. I'm simply discharging the trust commanded to me. What is my reward? Just this, that in preaching the gospel I may offer it free of charge, and so not make use of my rights in preaching it. So Paul's decided to make the point about giving up your rights so that no one gets falls or sins or anything like that. He's saying, for the sake of the gospel, I've not took a wife. Okay, remember a couple of chapters ago he's talking about marriage? He made that very clear. I wish everyone was like me, But he's saying, I haven't taken a wife. And the reason, and I'm not taking any money, because here's what happens. If you have a wife, then you're distracted. Remember marriage? That was last week. You get distracted. If you take money, that's slightly different. Because pay or reward may produce some dependency. And in its absence, it holds the forward momentum of the gospel. So if you get paid for something and then become dependent on the pay, and that becomes something that you need, if the pay is taken away, then it can hinder the gospel. Do you know what I mean? So I don't believe I'm called to be like Paul in terms of his singleness, obviously, and his going to the Gentiles and all that kind of stuff. But I know that I should have been married, and the context in which I live in is appropriate for what I did. So Paul's not saying being an apostle is the model for everybody. It's just saying he is the example where he didn't take the wage and he didn't take the wife. And he did it because he didn't want a hindrance to the gospel. He wanted to be free to go wherever God led him. And it turns out that he's the greatest Christian missionary of all time. And that's we're reading his letter in the Bible. So he's kind of. So I don't get any questions.
It seems like a really logistical question, but if Paul didn't get paid for his work he did, then how did he live? How did he eat?
Sure. So Paul chose to be he was a tent maker, but he also worked with leather goods. So what happened is he had a part-time job, and he lived off that. There might be some exceptions where people, he did need money and he took it, but in Corinth he's given up his rights to that. You see. So and it's a bit of a sting in the eyes for the Corinthian church, because they were questioning him at every single turn and everything, and he never even took any what was due to him. So it's he's got rights, but he gave them up. So that's basically what this chapter's about. He gave them up to him. But it's interesting that in 9:24, do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way to get the prize. So in our Christian walk, okay, we can we can make sure, we are in a race. We're trying to, do well. We're trying to walk well. Our terminology has been here, we need to walk well. And that's walking well before God, so that we can kind of cross the line, however that's going to happen, and we've discharged all the ministries and all the things that we are supposed to have done. So Paul's an example there of somebody who's done well. Therefore I do not run, here we go. Everyone who competes in the games goes into strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last, but we get it to get a crown that will last forever. So here's the thing. If you can demonstrate faithfulness to God's plan in your life, if you can stay on track, if you can continue to walk the walk and do it well, not in terms of your kind of performance, because that's never good in front of God in that sense, but if you can just do what Jesus said and stay on track with that and get everything done, then here's the order of events. Okay, we are either going to die, or there's going to be an event called the Harpazo, and we can just going to include some things why we might be a little bit close to that tonight. And there's going to be a time when Jesus resurrects everybody who's ever died, okay, in Christ. The believers are all going to get resurrected, and then what will happen is that you'll be before Christ and he'll reward you. Now, a reward isn't just always positive, if you have kind of like not been faithful, then you won't get a reward what you may have been due, so there may be some minus from that reward. Thanks. So basically it's like we're going forward trying to win this prize. We get a crown on our heads, and that crown never goes away. So for eternity, what we are striving for now, what we're going forward to now, is like an eternal thing that will never fade and never vanish. So someone, remember Francis Chan's illustration, he gets this big long rope in a church, like it's about 20 metres long, it doesn't matter how long it is. And then on the end of it there's this red bit, and he says, why does everybody invest in this bit here? And this is your life, but that rest of the rope's your eternity with God. And he says, we're all about investing into this. We put money into this, we put time into this, and sometimes we do have to do that. We have to live in houses, we have to drive cars in Australia and all that kind of thing, but we invest everything into there. We don't think about the rest of it, And I thought that was a great illustration, because it shows us that all the kind of things that we're going through as Christians, all the sufferings, the joys, the pains, all that kind of stuff is minimal towards what's coming. It's minute towards the implication of an eternity which never ends. Okay, Francis Chan had a piece of rope that did end. Okay, but the illustration was it's never going to end.
On stage, you can see where it ended.
No, and they were clever in doing that. They just put it over there somewhere, and probably behind a curtain or something. But yeah, it was a great illustration to say that that's the kind of way we can go. So here's the question tonight then: what is it that we as believers can adjust, walk away from, pick up, embrace, throw away, that's going to make us run this race better? Okay? What is it in your life that can make us, because some of us, I know for a fact that this food sacrifice to idols, the whole principle of using my rights has offended people. I know that. I knew it when I was studying it. Okay, I was like going, I can see where I've done that, because I know that I've got freedom in many areas. Okay, but I know that it hasn't been great when I've engaged that freedom. Okay, so it's challenging, that, isn't it? So I'm gonna sort of like reflect on that, and I'm gonna go, God, Lord, I'm kind of like convicted now, because I know that I've gone into some areas which I'm allowed to do, but I know that it hasn't looked great to people. It hasn't come off as being a great kind of practice. It's and unbelievers around me have looked at me, and whatever my practices are, I said, well, that's made me okay to be like that then, and that's not good. That's like crushingly not good. You know what I mean? So there's a lot in there to kind of get your head around. And this Christian life, people who are unbelievers sat in here probably thinking, there's no way I'm becoming a Christian. I don't want all that on me. You know what I mean? But it's actually freedom what we're talking about. Because if you can get before your God and you can fess up all this stuff and go, you know what, I'm just not really doing well in this area, then it's before God, and God's there and He graciously pours Himself out for you, and He graciously comes with mercy and forgiveness and love, and He'll come and really kind of set us straight. So privately, in your own kind of head space or spirit space, whatever it is now, just try and think and allow the Lord to touch your heart. And we're going to do something that we've never done before, and it's going to sound weird on the media, but just silence for a few, probably half a minute or something, while we just connect with God and connect with Him and just say, Lord, I want to, and just so that if you struggle with this kind of thing, just say something like, not these same words or repeating me or something, but I often go to God and I say, God, you're going to have to show me where I'm, you know, not firing on all cylinders here. I want to be a good child of yours. I want to be a good follower. I want to be somebody who is better at this than I've been. I want to honour you. I want to lift you up, and I want to be an ambassador. I want to be a salt and light for you, Lord. And I will just let you all get into your mind space now. Yeah. So I mean, hopefully there's some narratives there that can continue after this. You know, if the Lord's touched your heart about anything and all that. It's not like a you know, God's got this app on His phone and He's going around going, a sin app, and when it goes over you it goes beep 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 beep. No, that's called the cross, and He's called us all out. The cross has called all of us out. None of us are getting away with it. So we've got to get to Jesus now. We've got to get to His feet. We've got to get in His face. You know, God likes that. Get in God's face, because He'd rather have you in His face, you know, ranting and raving and shaking your fist than going in the opposite direction. That's not what God wants. The whole point of Him sending Jesus, His Son, to die on a cross and to be tortured and suffer like He did in your place and in my place, was so that we would go to Him, so that we would knock on His door. I don't even think He's got a door, but I'm just saying, you know. And you know, the door's always flung open, and we can just go to Him, and you know, set our hearts before Him. You know, I wish people would have said this years ago, because when I was in a youth group, they used to say, you know, does your heart belong to Jesus? I'm like, yeah, but what about my kidneys and my lungs and stuff and all that? Don't they belong to Jesus? You know, it's obviously not talking about a physical thing that pumps blood around your body, but it means the core of your being, okay? The very core self of who you are. The bit that when you watch a film, have you ever watched a film and it's cripplingly, because it's so true and it's just somehow spoken to the centre of your being like that, and you've just gone, oh, and you just blow in and there's, sorry Richard, snot, and there's all kinds of stuff going on, you know, and there's all that stuff. It's just that you're eating green stuff on a food. So just thought I'd point that out. And it's kind of hit there, or you've heard a song, or a piece of art, or something, or someone said something, or prayed for you. I've had somebody come up to me, you know, a couple of years ago, and they just kind of like, it's been a long time since they did that, and they just said some things which were like, and it's like, well, for months I've been saying, God, I just kind of need you to just tap me on the shoulder a little bit. I know you're there. I know we've got trajectory. I just need a tap on the shoulder. Just read my diary. I don't care. Two lines of the diary would be great. Just, no, I'll tell you what, 2 words of the diary. In fact, just tell me I've got a diary. You know, anything, because I'm desperate for your touch. And then somebody just said, and I was in a cafe at the time, and I'm like going, and it was like, it didn't gradually come on, it was just like boom, you know what I mean? It was like, oh. So I don't know what them words meant, but it was like, I'm just there and I'm going, oh, well, that was kind of, you know, kind of like a paragraph of my diary there, right there, and that was in my core being. That you know, touched my core being in the centre of that. Now, if you've never had that experience, then you need to watch some great films or something, or just read the Bible, find out what Jesus did on a cross for you. Find out that a real man with real flesh came, and he got real nails slammed into his real arms and legs, and he willingly did this. Oh no, he didn't. He got arrested. It was all a setup for him to get arrested. God the Father knew this was going to happen. Well, why would a father let his son go through that? Well, I heard an illustration a while ago, and if you've heard this before, that's just let me get on with it, because what happens is, in the old style kind of train thing, have you ever been to the train station? They've still got them in the south of WA, and they've got levers, big levers, yeah? And this guy, his job is to kind of, every so often he's got to make sure that the points change so trains don't hit each other. And he gets into this, he has to take his little toddler son in one day, and he takes him in, and in this massive kind of, the signal box kind of thing, he can see loads of stuff like that, and he knows that these trains are going to go at full speed, and if he doesn't change these points, they're going to hit each other. So he turns up, his foot, toddler's running around like that, and he gets ready, and he knows at a certain time he's got to do it. 5 seconds before he has to change it, the toddler falls into the gears, and he grabs it, and he goes, 250 people on that train, 250 people on that train, and his son, what does he do? What does he do? Well, this is what God the Father did. And you're on that train. Okay? You're on that train. And he saw that. And he saw that the trains were heading for each other. But it's not trains, is it? It's a Christless eternity. It's the lake of fire, the Bible tells us. I'd like to put it in different words, but I'm not allowed to. Right? That's what it is. And mankind is heading for that. But Jesus comes, and it's actually a set piece by God, and he's not in the gears. But the Father has got a choice. Does all mankind just slip away into this, rightfully into eternal punishment for breaking God's law? Or does the Son come and say, me, I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll be the one who comes, and the wrath of God falls completely on Jesus and crushes him. Crushes him to pieces. Alright? And mankind, people get born, people, live their life in complete ignorance to the fact that God initiated this act. God made this happen. He was the genius behind redemption. He was the genius behind salvation. Okay? And we live our lives, and we look for the next piece of cake, the next chip. There's nothing wrong with it, as long as it's giving thanks for God. But this is what we do. Blindly, blinkered, go and live our lives. I'm living for me, it's for pleasure, it's for my all that kind of thing. Then we die, and we didn't care that the Son had come, and the Father had willingly expended his Son on me. Do we care? Now I know lots of people in this room do care passionately that it's changed their lives so much that they're unrecognisable to 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Jan walks in the morning, she says, "Morning!" And every day I go, praise God, because God has redeemed that woman like that, just completely lifted her out of this world and gone, "You're my child, what's that, what we're going to do about that?" And she's gone, "Yeah, Jesus," And it's like an amazing story of redemption and all that, and one day I'm sure we'll hear it. But it's kind of like God is in the process and in the business of changing lives, okay? And he wants to reach into your life, believer, and touch your heart. He wants to touch the core of your being. Why? Just to make you have goose pimples and cry? No, because in his hands are healing. In his hands is renewal and refreshing and redemption. And other words that begin with re, which I can't remember right now. Okay? Rejoicing, which would come from this action. Yeah. And revelation, which would be, it's more illumination. So shall we stop the re words now? Revamping. So, but back to the core of what I'm going to finish right now. A bit early tonight, but I want you to really go away. I'm a sort of person who wants to rush people into decisions, like to rush people. Now, I want you to make a decision now, because I don't know what's going to happen to you when you walk out that door. And some of you, before you walk out. No, I'm joking. So I don't know what's going to happen, right? I actually don't. And you don't know what's going to happen.
Tomorrow's
You-
no progress.
Yeah, but you're likely to go to bed tonight and wake up tomorrow. You are. Because it's just like insurance companies depend on it. You know what I mean? So they depend on the fact that there's statistics that you're going to probably live a while. You know, it's tragic when people don't. So, but the thing is that our just, you know, this eternal crown that every Christian's going to get for their faithfulness is not really a great message for people who aren't Christians. I don't really bother about a crown. I'm bothered about really now and where's my next, you know, meal coming from and all that kind of thing. But here, everybody in this room who's become a Christian, who've made choices for Jesus in their life, has seen something called redemption lift. And redemption lift is something where incrementally, and it's not an overnight thing, it's definitely over time, okay, your life gets better and better and better from glory to glory. You live, and this is even people who live in deserts and people who live in war zones. If you're trusting Christ in your context, the way you're living right now, He is going to grow you. He's going to work in you and through you. He's going to heal and restore and rebuild. Okay, but it takes us to lay our lives down, that word, that our heart, our core being before Him, in honesty, in just humility before Him. I unreservedly lay my heart out to you, Lord. I bow my heart low before you. I'm only saying this because this is like what the Lord's expecting from us, not with a aggression and like, oh, bow before me. But look, I want to save your life. I want you to be full of joy. I want you to have peace and love pouring out of you like rivers of flowing water. I want the Spirit of God to live in you so that you can not just walking blind and bouncing off every circumstance, pillar and post. That's what Jesus is saying. I want you to have this life and life more abundantly. I want you to live in it. I want you to walk in it. I want you to talk in it. You know? And then when it boils down to it, there are going to be chapters in the Bible like this where we're given guidance about what to do. But you know, when you follow the guidance and when you live that way, it's joy. Because the burden of getting it wrong, dragging yourself through another circumstance, you know, trying to, you know, raise your flesh through some kind of thing, trying to get rid of guilt, shame and hurt because we're still sinning, all that, we can live beyond that. And you can live peacefully, joyfully and abundantly beyond that. But it requires an act of free will to acknowledge that God would send Jesus to do that, and He's done it for you. Okay? Obviously you've got to believe Jesus exists and all that. Some people still have problems with that. Okay? You've got to know that God has, from the beginning, before the beginning of time, had you in mind. And you know what? Guess how I know? Because you're sat in this room right now. And that's no accident. It's no accident, honestly. Allow Him to melt your heart. Allow Him to work in your mind. Allow Him to break down all the resistances. And if there's anyone in this room saying, oh, God can't save a sinner like me, I can never change. Oh, there's so many testimonies in this room of that where that's different. You know, where that's not true at all. And it's not by magic. It's by relationship with a real God who really loves you. Let's pray. Glorious King and mighty God, we do lift you up, Lord, because you, in your hands, you have the power to heal, restore, renew, but also redeem, Lord. You want to buy us. You've already bought us, but you want to bring us out of this world, Lord, this dark world that's going pretty more dark by the minute. And you want to really lift us on to a rock, a firm rock that will never ever crumble beneath our feet, and that rock's Christ. So Lord God, help us tonight, Lord, to, if we are believers, to really nestle up to you, Lord God, to really place ourselves right close and in proximity to you, Lord. And if we're not believers tonight, Lord, help us to nudge our minds even closer, Lord. Help us to bow our hearts, Lord. Help us to submit to this story where a glorious Creator God that we enjoy every day, Lord, the creation, but Lord, deny the Creator. Help us to know, Lord, that you are the Creator, not just the Creator of land, sea and sky, but the Creator of love, joy, peace, goodness, kindness, gentleness, self-control, patience and faithfulness. Help us to walk in them things and give our hearts to you in Jesus' name. Amen.